Merry Christmas Eve. I know that it's technically not Christmas Eve yet anywhere but Europe, but I'm sure some of you are watching in Europe. We've got some 49ers news today. The 49ers actually do have practice today. The NFL does not stop. They will even have practice on Christmas Day. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday night football against the Bears. We have an update on Brandon Aiyuk after he posted the video speeding past Levi's Stadium last week. He has apologized via his YouTube channel. Here is the apology from Brandon Aiyuk. Sorry, y'all. My car content won't come with speeding anymore. Was praying with my son tonight and wouldn't want anybody else to miss out on an opportunity to do the same with their loved ones. My apologies. Signed, B. Brandon Aiyuk. I'm sure that this will not put Aiyuk back in the good graces of most 49ers fans, but you can take it for what it's worth. He did apologize. I think it was TMZ that reported, because they called I think the Santa Clara Police Department, or I don't know if they called the sheriff. They called some law enforcement, and the response to TMZ's inquiry was that Brandon Aiyuk is being investigated, that they're looking at the video that he posted online. It was unclear if it was miles an hour or kilometers per hour, but it did look like he hit up to 104. Now, 104 kilometers per hour would be 65 miles per hour, so it would still be speeding in what I think is a 40-mile-an-hour zone on Tasman. So either way, that's something that the police are looking at, and it just happened to be right by Levi's, and we know of the drama regarding Aiyuk and the 49ers, and I just think, stepping back from everything here, it's a sad situation because you see how much fun the 49ers are having on the field right now, and you saw how much fun Brandon Aiyuk was having on the field with this team from 2021 to, I'll say, 2023. It didn't seem like 2024 was fun at all for anybody involved, but all the way up to 2023, I mean, he was in battle with his brothers, and I don't know how exactly we got from point A to point B to where the 49ers are on this high adrenaline, entertaining, exhilarating ride without him right now. I don't know how we got from the point where Aiyuk was making the plays like the one against the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship game when the ball bounced off of Vildor's helmet and he caught it, and then Aiyuk caught the touchdown a few plays later. Somehow we got from that point to this point where the only time that we hear from Brandon Aiyuk is when he's speeding by Levi's Stadium and then apologizing a couple days later. So, just the surface level of this, the journey that it's taken, is obviously sad. We don't know a lot of the details as to why Brandon Aiyuk is away from the team, why he's essentially ghosted them. We do know the financial fallout. That actually has been beneficial to the 49ers from a salary cap perspective, or will be beneficial to them from that perspective, because they're going to be able to get money back. They've already voided guarantees. They're probably going to be able to recoup 2025 money because Aiyuk just picked up and left the facility. His locker is still there in the corner of the room. There's still stuff in Brandon Aiyuk's locker, but they just haven't seen him in over a month. And every time that they hear from Brandon Aiyuk, it seems that it hadn't been in good circumstances, like the YouTube video post from last week. But he has apologized, and let's spin this forward, because the 49ers, when they put him on the left squad list, they gave Brandon Aiyuk 5 days to report. Since he didn't report within those 5 days, he cannot return this season. He's still under contract through 2028. The 49ers will pick up the pieces, figure out what to do next after this season, because they've got to focus on the 11-4 run right now. They've got the Bears on Sunday. They've got the Seattle Seahawks coming up after that on the following Sunday, probably Sunday Night Football for both of these games. They have a hell of a team, and they have a chance at the NFC's 1 seed. And, I think focus right now this week is going to be very, very intense on Ricky Pearsall, who narrowly missed last week's game with the aggravation of his PCL injury and also the ankle sprain that he suffered against Tennessee. And the new injury, that's George Kittle, who has suffered a mid to low ankle sprain. So both Pearsall and George Kittle are going to be day-to-day this week, I think. We're not sure about George Kittle yet, but his avoidance of the high ankle sprain is big news for the 49ers. We will see if one or both of these guys is out at practice today, but we can look at what the 49ers were able to do 2 nights ago in Indianapolis and say, this offense is really starting to hum even without a top shelf separating X wide receiver. So when Aiyuk disappeared from the equation, the hinge point seemed to be Ricky Pearsall, and it might still be for the 49ers. Sometimes you can get away with things in a one-game scenario, especially because the Colts were missing both of their starting cornerbacks. They were missing Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward. By the way, talk about an all-in trade backfiring. Ever since the Colts traded 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, they've gone 1-5. He's missed a big chunk of that time, including the past 2 games with Phillip Rivers now on the team. So they lost to the Seahawks narrowly and to the 49ers by 21 points. They've also not seen a lot of their other cornerback, Charvarius Ward, the ex-49er who has 3 concussions this year. That's a bad situation for Charvarius, for Mooney Ward. But the Colts pushed all their chips into the middle of the table, and it just blew up in their face. You see, or you saw why they traded so much draft capital for a cornerback in the game on Monday, because the 49ers completely torched whoever they had trying to cover them on the outside. But the fact that trade yielded so little and has turned into a 1-5 downward spiral, obviously it coincided with Daniel Jones first fracturing his fibula and then tearing his Achilles. It is a cautionary tale that sometimes making a very, very strong move as far as aggressiveness goes at the trade deadline can just blow up in your face, and it certainly blew up in the Colts' face. Anyway, 49ers got to face a Indianapolis defense that was down its top 2 corners, and they did this from an efficiency perspective in the pass game. Anytime you see a number in green in the rightmost column, that is a very, very good mark. This is EPA per target, so it's expected points added per target. I'll explain here. Raw yardage can only tell you so much. Raw yardage, somebody can have 115 receiving yards like Kittle did the other night, but if he has 115 receiving yards on 20 targets and 20 catches, each catch is not really gaining that much yardage. It's not all that efficient. So the fact that Kittle had 115 receiving yards on 7 catches and then also on only 8 targets, say that he had 7 catches, 115 yards, but 20 targets, that would mean 13 incompletions on throws intended for George Kittle. That also wouldn't be efficient. If you can keep these 2 numbers as low as possible, while this one is obviously as high as possible, that's yardage, then you'll look over here, and this number, this is basically something that is a product of these numbers over here, the expected points added per target. This will be extremely high. And every single time that Purdy targeted Kittle, the 49ers added 1.22 expected points. Every single time that Purdy targeted Jawan Jennings, the 49ers added 1.5 expected points. That's efficiency right there. That is what you strive for as an offense. The only 2 guys in the negatives were Brian Robinson. He only had 1 target, and Kendrick Bourne, who had 5 targets, but 2 of them were drops, including 1 drop that led to an interception. So that's going to knock the EPA per target down by a lot. But the efficiency that I just showed you up on the screen, that is something the 49ers had not attained across the board of the receiving room this year when they had not had they haven't had Brandon Aiyuk all season, but when they have not had Ricky Pearsall in the lineup. Last year, they only had Aiyuk for the first 7 weeks. He got hurt in week 7 against the Kansas City Chiefs, unless they had an early bye. I'm trying to remember when the bye was last. No, it was after week 7. It was around the trade deadline last year. So it was around probably, I would think, week 10 or so in 2024. But once they lost Aiyuk, and Pearsall obviously was a rookie, he was coming off getting shot in the chest. He wasn't the force that he has been this year when he's been healthy, when he's been available to play. So the 49ers, ever since 2024, have really struggled with separation because it's space creating is a team-wide effort. But I think that the main figure in creating space in Kyle Shanahan's scheme is the X wide receiver. If you have a nasty separator at the X, somebody who's going to draw at least one other defensive set of eyes, but maybe multiple sets of eyes and maybe even two bodies over to his side of the field. If you have that, the math starts working out for you at other parts of the field. So usually to see an efficiency chart so good, like the one that the 49ers had on Monday against the Colts, normally you're going to have an X that's drawing, at the very least, a lot of attention. Not necessarily a lot of catches, but a lot of attention because that opens things up for everybody else. What made this game against the Colts exceptional is that the 49ers did not have their two best separators. They didn't have Aiyuk. They didn't have Ricky Pearsall, and they still did this. That's a credit to Shanahan. It's obviously a credit to Purdy. It's a credit to Kittle, Jennings, McCaffrey. McCaffrey's been the big addition for the 49ers that they didn't have last year because even without the X, like an Aiyuk, Christian McCaffrey is the unique running back coming out of the backfield that draws defensive attention like a gravitational pull, right? So we compare McCaffrey a lot to Steph Curry because Curry, anytime he's on the court, even if he doesn't have the ball, he is drawing the attention of other defenders outside of the guy who's guarding him. Just watch these games and watch the geometry of these games. So, keep your eye, if you do a good job when you're watching on TV of not always looking at the football. So I know it's really tempting to look at the quarterback the whole time, but try to watch the 49ers out on their pass patterns, and at least as far as the guys who remain in the frame. If you're at the game, it's a lot easier to do this. Watch Christian McCaffrey and then notice how the defense moves around him. He's always going to draw at least one defender, but what he does at the very least on every single snap is that he'll take a second defender, whether it be a linebacker or a safety, and he'll, at the very, very least, put them into concrete. They'll be standing in concrete, and that maybe they're not coming closer to Christian, but they are frozen in place because of the threat of Christian potentially getting the football. So even if McCaffrey's number is a little bit lower here, and it's still really good, 0.4 EPA per target is really solid for McCaffrey. It wasn't the biggest game for him yardage-wise receiving, but he caught 2 of those touchdowns. So that's how he generated some of those numbers. But even if the production is not prolific in terms of raw statistics, McCaffrey, just by being the threat that he is, opens up space elsewhere. Because if that safety is stuck in concrete, having to pay attention to McCaffrey in case he gets a dump off, that's how somebody else gets open downfield. Demarcus Robinson caught a touchdown for the 49ers on their opening drive where Brock Purdy looked off the left safety and then threw the post into Demarcus Robinson. That's defensive manipulation by the quarterback. Purdy gets a lot of credit for what he did in this game against Indianapolis in that regard. Manipulation becomes stronger, becomes easier to do when you have weapons who can sell the fake or the look off more credibly. So that's why missing Brandon Aiyuk and missing Ricky Pearsall is something that has hurt the 49ers. And they were down to number 32, dead last in 2024 in average separation at the time of catcher and completion. They've improved only to number 25 this year. Pearsall's missed most of the season. If they can get Ricky back for this game, it can help create some spacing on the field against the Chicago Bears. Now, I want to show you guys turnover differential because this is the one big key of this matchup, and it's a key of every matchup, but especially this one against Chicago. So I'm opening it up, getting this up on the screen. Football Database does a great job of sorting takeaways, giveaways, and an overall differential. Look who's at the very top of the list in the NFL. Chicago plus 21. This is an interesting team. I think it's a special team. I don't think they're great, but I will say that they're special. The Bears are the first team in NFL history, so the only team in NFL history to have won 6 games that they have trailed after the 2-minute warning. So 6 times these guys have been behind after the 2-minute warning, and they have found a way to come back and win, including the game that we saw on Saturday night against the Green Bay Packers. So there's some kind of magic going on with Chicago, and you can't assume that these guys are put away, even if you do get ahead of them. So take a look here. The Bears, plus 21 in turnover differential. How do they do it? Well, let's look at their total takeaways. Sorting by total takeaways, Chicago leads the league. Jacksonville is number 2. Jacksonville was ahead early in the year. Jacksonville played the 49ers, intercepted Brock Purdy twice, had a hell of a game, and then I think they pick-sixed Mahomes a couple weeks after that. Everybody was talking about all the turnovers that Jacksonville generated. Everybody talks about how good Houston is defensively. The Rams are a top 3 team defensively. They're all in the top 5. Chicago is not a top 5 defense by efficiency, but they are number 1 with 31 total takeaways. Now, the giveaway department for the Bears is also good. They found a way to protect the football. If you scroll down here, they have the 3rd fewest giveaways in all of football. They have only 10 giveaways. So 31 takeaways, only 10 giveaways. Ben Johnson, I think, understands that his team, they're not world beaters. Caleb Williams is still developing as a quarterback. He's one of the least accurate quarterback in the league. Now, he put a great ball on DJ Moore to win the game against the Packers, but you have to look at this on a down-in, down-out basis. He just isn't very accurate. He's not really on time. There's going to be a lot of ways for the 49ers to disrupt the Bears, and I think that Ben Johnson, the head coach of Chicago, came over from the Detroit Lions, understands probably better than anybody, because he's just a really, really good coach, but he understands the limitations of his quarterback, the limitations of his team. And Ben Johnson has come out and said, we are winning in spite of our passing game, not because of it. Like, he has held no punches. He's out there saying, hey, Caleb Williams has been a limited quarterback for us. We're finding ways to get it done without him. Now, one of the ways that they're getting it done is not turning the ball over. So even if the offense has not been efficient or accurate, it hadn't been throwing the ball consistently to the other team, which is really, really important. So only 10 giveaways for the Bears. And then the other side of the football, 31 takeaways. That's where the 49ers have to avoid the danger zone. And that's why I'm talking receivers today. I know that Aiyuk made his apology on YouTube, but he's not coming back to play for the 49ers. So we're going to be talking about the 49ers who are potentially going to be available. And these guys right here, combined with Brock Purdy, they have to find a way to keep the football out of harm's way against the Bears, because that's how Chicago can potentially neutralize its disadvantage against the 49ers and come away with the win. Another thing working in the Bears' favor, and, it's not exactly a fair scheduling setup, but life is not always fair. The NFL is not always fair. Sometimes you get a scheduling break. Sometimes you get something working against you. The 49ers have a short week. They played on Monday night. The Bears played on Saturday night. So the Bears have 2 more days of prep for this game. I'm checking to see what the spread is right now. It was the 49ers favored by 3 points. It still is the 49ers favored by 3 points. So that tells us that the 49ers are the better team. But I think the spread would be much bigger if the rest were even in this football game. I want to show you the team tier chart just so you can get a little bit of an idea of what you're dealing with efficiency-wise from both of these football teams. By the way, 49ers red zone efficiency, we're going to take a quick little diversion here. This is the 49ers red zone efficiency since week 9. The final 2 weeks of Mac Jones heading up into the Brock Purdy stretch. The bottom x-axis is percentage of drives reaching the red zone. The y-axis is red zone touchdown percentage. The 49ers have been elite as far as gobbling up yardage in the middle of the field, but then they've also been one of the top 5 teams scoring once they actually do get to the red zone. So you want to be in the very upper right corner of this graph, and the 49ers are getting closer and closer and closer to it. They were really good in the red zone against the Indianapolis Colts. I will say that Christian McCaffrey is a hell of a weapon to have in the short area, in the short confined area of the red zone, because he could do so many different things. He scored 2 of the 49ers red zone touchdowns the other day. Kittle is obviously very important there. It's the guys who are adaptable that are usually the most important pieces in the red zone, because you need to be able to sell either run or pass when you're working with less space, because you really need the defense to bite on fakes. You really need a defense to commit to the wrong thing to have the appropriate space in the red zone. And of course, having Brock Purdy out there and his mobility, you saw it on the Kittle touchdown, is also really important, because buying time can be a good thing as well. This is EPA per target. So if we're talking about, Brandon Aiyuk was awesome in this metric back in 2023. George Kittle and Brock Purdy, though, they have developed a connection that is breaking the efficiency scales. You have to go far down this list to find somebody not named George Kittle who is a tight end. Dallas Goedert, number 9. And Goddard is nowhere near the raw production of George Kittle. Look, there's Trey McBride a little bit later. Kittle at the very top, ahead of Puka Nacua, ahead of Alec Pierce, who I think is going to be a 49ers target in free agency this offseason. We just saw him, the fast, tall Colts receiver, 6'3", scored 2 touchdowns on Monday night. George Pickens, also slated to be a free agent. We'll see what happens to him. He's number 4 on this list. And Stephon Diggs, who's having a resurgent year for the New England Patriots. But topping the entire list is George Kittle. All right, I said I was going to get to the team tier chart, so I need to actually get to the team tier chart. But I have to find that chart in order to get to it. And as soon as, we also have this. I keep on getting sidetracked, but for good reason, because there's a lot to cover this morning. We talk about 49ers and Bears. And I know that, it's Christmas Eve today. A lot of you might have been working over the past few days. Maybe you're off of work today, so you could finally watch a video. So it's a good idea to reset where we are. This is the setup at the moment. The 49ers at the 5. They passed the Rams with the win on Monday night. They now have their eyes set on the 1 seed. So the way this works, and I know that a lot of you are familiar with this, but I think people deserve a re-explainer sometimes. Seattle at 12-3 has a better record than the 49ers, but the 49ers, if they beat Seattle and beat Chicago, even if Seattle beats Carolina on Sunday, will have the same record as the Seahawks. So the 49ers can finish 13-4. The Seahawks, if the 49ers finish 13-4, will be no better than 13-4. If both the 49ers and the Seahawks finish 13-4, the 49ers will be the 1 seed by virtue of the fact that they'll have a better divisional record than Seattle. And they'll also have a better conference record, which is the record used to break the ties amongst conference rivals here. Nobody has a better conference record than the 49ers, who are 8-2 right now. They have a chance to move to 9-2 if they beat the Chicago Bears, 10-2 in the conference if they beat the Seahawks. Nobody will catch the 49ers in conference record if they win out. As far as the division goes, the 49ers have only lost once this season. They only lost to the Rams in Week 10. The Seahawks have already lost to both. Well, the Seahawks have lost to the Rams, and if they lose to the 49ers, they will lose to both the 49ers and the Rams And the Seahawks have lost also in week 1 to San Francisco. So they already have 2 division losses, more than San Francisco. And if the 49ers hold serve and beat the Seahawks in week 18, then it'll be 3 division losses for Seattle. That's why a 13-4 49ers team will be the 1 seed no matter what. That is secure, that there are no questions about it. The 49ers control their own destiny toward that 1 seed. The top 4 seeds here are all division winners. That's just the rule. If you're a division winner, you get one of the top 4 based on your record. So that's why Carolina, they're the odd the odd ones here, and I don't know, they're outliers. I guess you could call the Panthers the outliers. They're 8-7. They're at the 4. The 5, 6, and 7 are wild card teams. So those are teams who are not ahead of in their division, but have the best remaining records. Only the 1 gets the bye. 2 through 7 have to play each other on wild card weekend. So it's 2 versus 7. If the playoffs started right now, Green Bay would head to Chicago again, rematch of that Saturday night game. The Rams would head to Philly, rematch of a game that the Eagles won on the blocked kick at the final gun. And the 49ers would head to Charlotte, North Carolina. Yes, they'd have to play on the road because they're a lower seed against the Panthers, the rematch of the Monday Night Football game where Brock Purdy threw those 3 interceptions, but then bounced back to have a good second half. Now, the 49ers are not likely to remain in the 5 seed. Either they win out and they'll be the 1, or they'll lose one of their last 2 games, or maybe both. But the most likely spot for the 49ers, according to the math, is the number 6 seed. And if the 49ers are 6 and Philly ends up, and I think it's almost a lock that Philly is the 3, it might be a lock. 49ers against Philadelphia in the first round might be the most likely playoff matchup. But the 49ers can say, screw that. We are not taking the number 6 seed. We're going to win out, and we can go to be the number 1 seed. And if that's the case, the 49ers will essentially have an automatic playoff win. When we talk about the Pearsall and the George Kittle return to play decisions, that has to be factored in, and the 49ers will factor that in. They're going to say, hey, these are technically regular season games against the Bears and the Seahawks, but winning both would effectively amount to a playoff win. So I think that effectively you can say that there's a playoff game in the next 2 weeks for the 49ers, because if you win both, you're the 1 seed and you don't have to play in the wild card round, which is an automatic playoff victory. Huge. If you're the number 1 seed, you have about a 50% chance to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl's at home this year for the 49ers at Levi's Stadium. If you are not the 1 seed, if you're somewhere lower, like the difference between the 1 and the 5, because the 5 has to go on the road, the 49ers would have to go to Carolina as the 5, or Tampa, if Tampa somehow wins that division. But the difference between the 1 and the 5 probability-wise is 50% down to about 15% chance of making the Super Bowl. So for all intents and purposes, the playoffs have started. The next 2 games are part of the postseason because they could give you a tremendous edge heading into January. And sometimes guys will just suck it up, take a painkiller, get out there in games that mean a little bit more. You're not going to do it in week 3 of the regular season. But the calculus here, I think, is going to lean toward Kittle and Pearsall trying to push through some stuff to get out there. You obviously don't want to do it to a point where it's unsafe, but we talk so much about the painkillers that they use in the NFL, and we talk about the fact that everybody's a little bit dinged up at some point of the season. Well, that's definitely going to be one of the considerations for the 49ers entering this game against the Chicago Bears. We will see. It's a big day at practice today for San Francisco. We'll see if Kittle's out there. We'll see if Pearsall's out there. I would think probably not for both of them today. But then Christmas Day practice tomorrow, that could be the one where we see they're not going to have media availability tomorrow, but we're probably going to get to see the injury report when they do practice. And if Kittle's out there in a limited fashion, Pearsall's out there in a limited fashion, really good sign that they're both going to be available on Monday. And even if they're not, they could still practice on Friday and be good to go for for Sunday. I think I said Monday, but I was so used to the Monday Night Football schedule of the past week. So nothing's going to be ruled out, I would think, until the game day, but you could get a really positive sign over the next 2 days of practice for the 49ers. All right, I promised I would get to the team tier chart, and I think I'm almost there. I just haven't found it yet. I just have such a mess of stuff on my computer right now coming off of the game. I haven't been able to clear all the tabs. So I'm scrolling down on my own X feed. Here it is, in order to get this. This is how the teams are playing over the course of the past month and a half. So you've got offense on the X-axis, defense on the Y-axis. The 49ers have been playing as the best team in football alongside the Rams. And then look at Jacksonville. Something, if you were watching this channel last week, you know that we predicted that Jacksonville would go into Denver and beat the Broncos, and they beat them by 2 scores. Well, I mean, they're 2 or 3 tiers better than the Broncos over the course of the past month and a half. The reason that I say month and a half and I limit the sample to that is because that's been the range of time since Brock Purdy returned. The 49ers had the best offense in football ever since Brock Purdy's return to the lineup in week 11, which is why he might be the best quarterback in football. I mean, what he's done has been absolutely tremendous. They also have had an above average defense, but they've actually played better defenses than offenses. So I think the 49ers defense has had a little bit of a cushion. I think there is reason to be concerned as they move to face better offenses. The Bears offense right here is above average. I don't think it's a world beater. Perhaps playing Caleb Williams, a quarterback who's not getting the ball out on time, will be beneficial for the 49ers because Phillip Rivers was definitely getting the ball out on time on Monday night. But after the Bears, it's the Seahawks who, you know, you're probably wondering, why are the Seahawks in that spot? Why aren't the Seahawks in the upper right? They haven't been playing great offense. For the past month and a half, Sam Darnold and company have hit a wall, and there was a bit of fool's gold in their win over the Rams in that, remember, the Seahawks had, 16 points late in the fourth quarter? Like, they were not having a productive offensive day. Sam Darnold was throwing a bunch of interceptions, and then they got the punt return. It was special teams that fueled Seattle. It was the punt return that turned that game around. So don't be fooled by how that game ended. Make sure that you consider the big picture. The last several weeks, Seattle has been a below average offensive team. Like, the 49ers have been multiple tiers ahead of both of their final regular season opponents over the course of the past several weeks. I don't think that people are fully grasping how much of a hit the Seahawks offense has taken lately. And they're missing Charles Cross, their top offensive tackle, against the Rams. That was probably part of the struggles. And you have to give Darnold and Clint Kubiak and that entire team, coached by Mike McDonald, credit for overcoming what they did overcome. But the truth is still the truth, and it is that they have not been nearly as good offensively. This is why I laugh. You know, you had a lot of Seahawks fans and media and stuff saying, oh, the 49ers, look at them. They're getting shredded by a 44-year-old grandpa. The 49ers beat the Colts by 21 on the road. The Seahawks beat the Colts by 2 at home. And you could say what you want about the struggles of the 49ers defense over the course of the first 2 drives of that game on Monday night. But the 49ers also scored 6 touchdowns against the Colts on the road. The Seahawks kicked 6 field goals against the Colts at home. I mean, those 2 things are not the same. Those 2 things are very different. So Purdy is playing at a much higher level than Darnold. And if you have a quarterback advantage in any game, you're almost certainly going to be favored. I don't know what the number is going to be for the 49ers and Seahawks, and I don't think we should care that much right now. This is more of a side note from me. First, we've got to focus on 49ers versus Bears. But it wouldn't shock me if San Francisco wins this game against Chicago, comes out favored against the Seahawks, and then beats the Seahawks too. Now, anything could happen. They could lose their last 2 games. They could split them. I'm just explaining the strategy entering these final 2. And I think that probably the biggest thing that the 49ers have to contend with right now is the short week while Chicago is dealing with the long week entering this first game of Sunday Night Football. All right, so we got the team tier chart up there. Good. That needed to get up there. I mean, we could always put Purdy third downs up there, but I've been showing that one a lot the last couple of days. Wanted to get turnover margin in there as well. And of course, the San Francisco Standard. We've got the grades from Monday's game up, centered around a George Kittle update. I've taken some of this show from this article. Look, there's the Purdy chart that we're talking about. Magnificent. Upper right. Good stuff from Brock Purdy. But we have snap counts, we have grades, we have everything in this piece. Go ahead and check it out. This is huge. Remember, the Colts only 4.1 yards per play after drive 2. And then the special teams Super Bowls coming up. Seahawks, 49ers, 1-2 in the NFL. Those of you who are just joining, Brandon Aiyuk apologized last night. I tweeted this out on YouTube, decided, hey, let's wait until today for the video. Gave you guys a lot of content already yesterday. Needed a little bit of a break. And obviously now it's Christmas Eve. 49ers will practice today, so we'll get you an update video after that. Tomorrow's Christmas. It's going to be a little bit of a wonky schedule, I'm sure, for fans this week, but football will continue. And then we have 3 games, right, on Thursday night. Or 3 games on Thursday during the day, but none of them are good. Like, I'm not interested in the Cowboys playing the Commanders. If you are, get a life. I'm not interested in the Lions playing the Vikings. Maybe peripherally interested because the Lions are fighting for their playoff lives, but they're going to need the Packers to lose in front of them. The only team the Lions can pass is the Green Bay Packers. The 49ers are now immune to the Lions catching them. So the Lions need Green Bay to lose. Who else? Who's Green Bay playing this week? The only game really here with playoff implications potentially is that one. The Packers play the Ravens. So I guess it's a losable game, especially since there are probably questions about Jordan Love's availability. Green Bay's favored by 3. And then in the final week, the Packers play the Vikings. They're not going to lose that. I mean, it's the Vikings. So in all likelihood, the Lions are done. They play the Vikings tomorrow, Thursday, at 1:30 Pacific. And then the Broncos and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are already done. Denver's a massive favorite. The Chiefs have not been this big of a home underdog, 13-point underdog, in almost 50 years. Wow. So anyway, the Christmas Day slate is not good. Friday is going to be off. No NFL games. The 49ers will have their final practice before the Bears game. 2 games on Saturday, Texans and Chargers, Ravens and Packers. Texans and Chargers is magnificent. I love it. Can't wait to watch that. Harbaugh against DeMeco Ryans at SoFi. The Chargers are favored by 2. That's a game that is going to be impactful at the top of the AFC standings. And then, of course, the Ravens and the Packers, talked about that just a second ago. The Sunday slate that you'll get to watch in full because the 49ers don't play until the night game. Cardinals and Bengals, yuck. Steelers and Browns, also not interested. Saints and Titans, disgusting. Jags and Colts, interesting to me just because Phillip Rivers will be back out there, and I love the Jags. I mean, you guys have seen the team tier chart already. Let's go back and pay the Jags some respect at the very top there. They're in the tier with the 49ers and the Rams. I would love a Jags 49ers Super Bowl because people would just talk about Robert Saleh threatening to kill Liam Cohn for 2 weeks. I guess that's what happened after the 49ers Jags game back in week 4. Bucks and Dolphins, actually semi-interesting because Tampa Bay, the numbers still favor Tampa Bay to win the NFC South because they play the Dolphins and they're favored by 5.5. So you assume, okay, if Tampa Bay takes care of business and wins, then it's a winner take all scenario against Carolina at home. They have a rematch with the Panthers. They just played them on Sunday. They play them again the following Sunday, like not this one, but the one after. And that would be for the NFC South. That might actually determine who the 49ers play. Probably not, but might determine the 49ers' first round playoff opponent if San Francisco somehow ends at the 5 seed. So anyway, Bucks Dolphins, semi-interesting to me. Patriots Jets. Drake May has been awesome. I've loved watching Drake May this year. The Jets have not been awesome. I have not enjoyed watching the Jets this year. But Pats Jets, AFC East battle happening on Sunday. Seahawks Panthers, yes. I will tune in. Two teams, the 49ers might still play again this year. Seahawks for sure. Maybe the Panthers on schedule at some point in January. Giants and Raiders. Why is that game even still scheduled? Oh, can't they just tell those guys that they can go to Cancun already? They're both 2-13. That's a waste of time. But the Giants do have to play the Raiders on Sunday. The big afternoon game is the Eagles and the Bills. That's awesome. I can't wait to watch Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and all those guys. And of course, that sets the table for 49ers and Bears on Sunday night. Yeah, I guess the Giants and the Raiders are playing for the number 1 pick. Mike reminds me. I tend to not really focus on those things in the middle of the season because I'm used to covering a good team, but not everybody can be that lucky. So the Giants and the Raiders are playing for that number 1 pick. It's who are they tanking for? Who's going to be who's the chosen one this year? Is there a surefire number 1 pick? I don't do my draft study until after the season. I'm more focused on what's happening right now. Rams and Falcons on Monday night will be interesting to just sit back and watch how the Rams respond to that loss against the Seahawks. And the Rams are going to have a little bit of a vision of the field. I think that they need I don't know if what happens this week they might need a couple things to happen in order to get back up to that number 1 seed. And one of them might have to happen this week because they can't have both of them happen in the 49ers Seahawks game. So the Rams will obviously be cheering against the NFC West before they even play the Falcons on Monday Night Football. All right. Any questions? Let's head into the chat section. Look, we might have a couple super chats. Yeah, we got a super sticker. That's really cool. A little $5 there. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas to everybody. I'm going to answer a couple questions and then I'm going to wrap this up. Scrolling through, I know that I didn't warn you guys to prepare your questions, so I'll give you a couple seconds here to get that in there. Why are you guys talking about the NBA? I go into the chat section and people are talking about the NBA. What's the concussion protocol for the linebacker? Nick Martin, you're talking about Nick Martin. He's on injured reserve, unfortunately, now. He wasn't progressing through the concussion protocol the way that he needed to progress, and they just put him on injured reserve. So that's tough. He's going to be out for at least 3 weeks. His season probably done. I don't think they're going to use an IR activation on Nick Martin. How's Fred Warner's recovery coming along? I think it's going really well. He continues to live in that hyperbaric chamber. Listen, if I had to predict, if you put me on the spot, I would say that Fred Warner is coming back this year. By this year, I mean this season. He's not coming back this calendar year. This calendar year is a week from being done. But the 49ers just need to extend this long enough to give Fred Warner that opportunity in the postseason. What's going on with BA? BA, there's an apology here if you joined late. I'm going to take your comment off the screen, but this is just to give you the update on the news. Brandon Aiyuk said that he's not going to be speeding anymore in his videos. This comes a few days after he posted the video driving fast by Levi's Stadium. I'm not. Nobody's sure if it was kilometers an hour or miles an hour. At the end of the day, though, both were too fast. 104 kilometers an hour would have been about 65 miles an hour. Driving by Levi's, that's a 40-mile-an-hour road, I believe, Tasman. I drive that way to where, hey, I do my helmet update there. After every practice, I'm doing a helmet update right by where Brandon Aiyuk sped past. We have a question here about Purdy. As much as from Andrew, he says, as much as I love Purdy and I think he's elite, what would the QB efficiency look like if you took all the league's QB games? I appreciate your super chat, man, but I really don't understand your question. If you took all the league's QB games or that Purdy was, what would the QB efficiency look like then? I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best, man. I just don't understand. So thanks for the super chat. If you wanna ask the question again so that I could get it, I'll be happy to answer. Will the Niners defense generate more pressure the next two games in the playoffs? Well, if CJ West and Alfred Collins continue progressing, both of them, CJ West backed two guys up into Phillip Rivers. Collins backed his guard up into Rivers, forced the fumble. Yetur Gross-Matos is back now. I think he had a little bit of juice for the 49ers on Sunday. So, yeah, they should be generating more pressure just by virtue of improvement. I think we saw some of that against the Colts. I still think this is not going to be a great pass rush. I don't even think it's going to be an above average pass rush. It's unfortunate, but that's where they are with the injuries. The best they can do is contain the quarterback. And I think they actually did this well on Monday night. Take a look at this. I look at this after every single game. This is the average distance away from the quarterback measured by the GPS trackers. The league average is 4.58 yards, which is this bold line. The 49ers had multiple rushers closer to Rivers on average. So I think that, and this is really obvious when you look at how the 49ers are, when you look at how the 49ers are trying to compensate for their weaknesses, they realize that they're not going to be winning jailbreak rushes to the level that you need to win jailbreak rushes to mitigate the risk of the quarterback escaping the pocket. So they're working on a team cage rush. What they want to do is just constrict the pocket around the quarterback consistently to allow the back end to converge and tackle on shorter passes. That's been the 49ers' goal this season. And when they have a good game relative to their abilities at pass rush, this is what it looks like. Would you like Farrell to have a lower number? Sure. But 3 pass rushers with a 3.5, 3.6 yard number, that's excellent for San Francisco. So I think that they're making do with what they have at pass rusher after all the injuries. I don't think that PFF rated Phillip Rivers above Brock Purdy. I think, didn't Purdy have the highest grade of any quarterback this year? I wouldn't worry about it. Purdy, if you look at any metric that actually matters, Purdy's the very, very top of the league. Oh, you want me to do this? The games that Purdy was out. Oh, you want to know who the best quarterbacks are without Purdy? I could just eliminate Brock Purdy from the graph if you want me to. Well, I'll next show I'll do one. I'll make a graph that doesn't have Brock Purdy on it, and I'll do the games without Purdy. But thanks for your super chat. Thanks for clarifying the question. I'll prepare that for you next game. The 49ers, this is good. This is a good note. The 49ers tied with the Steelers for the most Monday night victories of all time. That was the 49ers' 55th victory on Monday Night Football of all time. They're in this back and forth race with the Steelers to hold the title of most Monday Night Football victories ever. And they're tied with the Steelers right now. So it's all good. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Good stuff. Merry Christmas Eve. We will talk to you very soon.